So as I sit here, my dear friends, around about 36 hours removed from John Cena properly retiring from WWE, the internet is melting down. I'm sure you've seen all the clips from post-Saturday night's main event when the fans who were live there were booing Triple H and going absolutely crazy. Now, personally, I enjoy it when these kind of in-storyline controversial things happen because it just gives us so much to talk about, which brings me to today's video, which asks the simple question, did WWE get this wrong when we came to John Cena's retirement? Now, please do check out my review from yesterday because I'm sure I touched on some points there that I won't get into today. But there's no real right or wrong answer. It all depends on how you feel about John Cena, how you feel about WWE, and how you watch wrestling to begin with. But hopefully we can talk about all that within the next 20 minutes or so. But I appreciate you joining me. I hope you are feeling okay and you're not too scarred by this. And if you do still have powers in your fingers, if you could like the video, share the video, and of course subscribe, enjoy the Simon Miller Wrestling Club, which is the most embarrassing thing I've ever said out loud, I will massively appreciate it. And of course I want to know your opinions too in the comments. Do you think it was the right or wrong way that we did treat John Cena? Let's get into it. Now, I will tell you, first and foremost, when it did happen and I was watching live, I was sad, I was mad, I was disappointed. I turned into a massive geek like John Cena will never tap out. I can't believe he did give up. But let's not forget that when you are watching anything that's entertainment-based, you're allowed to feel all these emotions. Sometimes you should feel happy, sometimes you should feel upset, sometimes you should cry, and sometimes you should feel warm and fuzzy in your tum-tum. I don't think there is a right or wrong when it comes to that. Oddly, and this makes me a very strange person, forgive me if you're not into video games, all of this reminded me of the ending to Mass Effect 3, which I thought was terrible. Some weird ghost child just turned up and said, exposition, exposition. But there are other people that thought it was quite creative, and poor BioWare felt so forced into a corner, they actually, released some DLC that changed the ending, and I wouldn't have done that, because I'm going to sound like a hoity-toity idiot here. When we are talking about wrestling or movies or videos games, it is artistry to a certain extent, and whoever is creating it should be allowed to put their own specific ending on it, and then we decide, did we like it or did we not like it, before we talk about something else, especially in a social media age. Because within 24 hours, you can go from being mad at the John Cena thing to someone being signed by AEW, and you want to talk about that instead. But I certainly did enjoy it from a I am just a person watching my favorite thing on television point of view, because there was so much to talk about. And I'm very blessed to have this platform. And I actually think a lot of people would feel the same way, because you can share your opinion on social media. You can share your opinion on TikTok, right? It's not like you need a massive platform now to all of a sudden do the virtual way of opening a window and going, here are my thoughts. But I think the nuance has been lost. And I know I talk about nuance all the time, but it's my favorite thing when it comes to pro wrestling. I do think you should be feeling 24,376 different ways about this, and I do think you should try to interpret it in different ways as well, because there have been so many theories that have come out over the last 24 hours, some of which are absolute nonsense, some of which are nonsense but still interesting. And it's not like John Cena, or maybe one day he'll do it on the Chris Van Vliet show or something, but no one is going to come out within the next week or so and say this is exactly what we meant by all that, to the point people are even arguing over what a tap out means. And I think if you can get to this kind of levels of depth, you must have done something a little bit right. Now, don't get me wrong. If I was in charge, if somebody said, Simon, you can run WWE and you want Gunther to win, I would have had John Cena pass out, right? I think it's just as effective. And I also think there's a lovely story there, because John Cena said to you, never give up. And he didn't give up until the last very second, because even though he knew he had nowhere to go and his brain was like, John, we're running out of oxygen, he decided, you know what, I will pass away into a blissful sleep. We're leaving the ref with, no other response but to say, the match is done, Gunther, you do win. And Gunther can still walk around saying, I retired John Cena, so everybody wins. Now, at the same time, you can argue what a tap out means, and I've seen this. Even Shayna Baszler weighed in, and I think all things considered, we should probably listen to the way that Shayna Baszler described it, because she kind of tied it into chess. Sometimes people knock their king over, whatever the flub they do, when they realize they've been checkmated, because it's like, there's nothing else I can do. I've reached the end. This is my getting off point, and that's why John Cena did it. So he didn't actually give up to tie into his catchphrase. It was just a realization that the end has arrived. So we're talking about meta stuff here, and some people like that, and some people don't like that. But it's not just John Cena, it's the real life John Cena, if only he had a working name, said the guy that does wrestling and wrestles as Simon Miller. That's a stupid thing of me to say. But it wasn't him giving up, it was him tapping out from wrestling, being completely fulfilled with what he has done in WWE over the last 23 years, and now he's going to go off into the sunset. Now, you're also allowed to go, that's a pile of baloney. Again, I would have had him pass out, although actually, if you gave me total control, I would have had him win. And this is where the other interesting point comes up. What do you want to see from pro wrestling? Because forgive me for using comparisons, I know some people don't like it when we do this. The reason I love Sting retiring from AEW so much at Revolution 2024 is because not only did it make me feel great about life, and it was super duper emotional, but it's something that I go back to all the time to watch because once again, I get nostalgia, I think about it, and it makes me happy. And ultimately, I think that's what wrestling should do, right? I think the world is so crazy and entertainment is there to distract you, to make it out like what is happening outside your window isn't going on, that when you get to these kind of big moments, you want to be able to skip and kind of go through a field going, oh man, peaches and cream, life is so wonderful. And I think that's something that I would have returned to here as well. But there is the flip side to all of this, and that is taking off your fan hat and putting on your business hat. WWE has just created an absolute monster in Gunther. I think what they do on Raw on Monday night is going to be so essential. They need to come out of the gate swinging. And also, if you are Triple H, what direction does he look at this in? Does he look at it from, again, I want to improve the business, I want to look at 2027, or does he look at it like, well, we have 20,000 people in this building that just want to see John Cena win? And I really think that is something you can argue till the cows come home. Because if you are booking for the arena on that evening, John Cena absolutely should have won. These people were livid. But maybe that's the feeling they were meant to get. Maybe when they all sat down, and there's no way this wasn't John Cena's idea as well. In my opinion, I don't know that for sure, but I feel very strongly about it. Because he's such a traditionalist, and of course there is this idea that when you are leaving a territory, you are retiring, you put somebody else over because you take all of the power and you give it to somebody else. And I am all for that, especially because Gunther retired Goldberg as well. And if he does now go on to retire Brock Lesnar, you have created the new Brock Lesnar, essentially, the absolute beast that will walk around retiring legends all over the place. But the sacrifice to that is the amazing feeling you would have had in your Tootsie Toes to see John Cena hit that last AA or make Gunther tap out or go to sleep with the STFU. People would have been going nuts. I think there still would have been a lot of tears, but it's happy tears compared to sad tears. And no, when Triple H came out to do the big send-off for John Cena, he wouldn't have been being booed. I think that's the most unfortunate thing. And listen, you're allowed to air whatever grievances you have, both vocally and on the internet. When we are booing the creative guy as opposed to the heel, that's when you know that wrestling is in a, well, I'm going to say a bad position, but a very interesting position in 2025, and why maybe some of these old traditions just don't work anymore. Again, that's something that we need to chat about as well, and why I would have just had John Cena win. I don't think it would have affected Gunther. This does make Gunther a bigger star. I want to make that very, very, very clear. If WWE follows up in the way that I expect them to, he is going to be an absolute beast throughout 2026, and people should be quaking in their boots if they ever do get in a feud with him, and he should be beating somebody soon like a CM Punk, like a Randy Orton, like a Cody Rhodes, like a John Cena if he was there anymore. We'll go with Brock Lesnar. I think the WWE is going to do that. I think John Cena would have had a chat about all this too and said, I think we absolutely have to do this. We've got to use what I can give. Is it something that you're going to go back to watch? And I do think there are elements of it that are wonderful, like the wry smile that John Cena gives, again, bringing back that Shayna Baszler explanation and tying it in with his facial expressions, I think makes it a wonderful moment of, well, yeah, like I say, it's the performer John Cena and it's the real life John Cena saying goodbye to something he has loved for the past 2 decades and doing it in a way that was meant to be a bit wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But in that moment, in that instant, oh my gosh, I can't believe they've done that. Of course you're going to react with negative comments. This was very much like when Brock Lesnar beat The Undertaker, because you can't believe it. And because wrestling is such an emotional sport and you're allowed to cheer and you're allowed to yell, you're like, well, I can't believe that we did do this. I would have been intrigued if there was no send-off for Cena after the fact. I mean, we had to do that. It was so important. But then you don't see a Triple H, you don't see anybody else. I wonder what they would have done, because John did run around and go, no, it was me, it was me. And that's when you realize this whole thing is meta now. The whole line between what's real and what's sport entertainment is completely out the window. But I think we have to watch it with that in mind too. That's what I think the smile was. That's what I think the tap out was. It wasn't saying never give up. It was, I'm done. I'm over, and now I'm going to fly off into the sunset. But you're also allowed to take a much more literal take, stupidest sentence I've ever said, on this, which is, no, if you do this, it means you have tapped out, you have given up. So John Cena's catchphrase is the funniest thing I've seen online. John Cena's catchphrase is now, don't give up until you want to give up. Then you can give up. Now, I always do watch professional wrestling with a little bit of a sense of levity because I do think it's there for fun. But the reason that I have become super excited about this ending is just because the amount of depth that we can dive into in it. And if he does win, I do think it's a moment that more people would revisit. And once you'd be crying, going, oh my gosh, I love it. Like a moment I always go back to with John Cena, obviously the 2008 WrestleMania return, Royal Rumble return. But also, I believe it was the Money in the Bank show after Roman Reigns has won in 2021 when John Cena surprised us. I think it was his first first appearance after the pandemic, to me, was the start of this John Cena run we had this time. We're not worried about John Cena sucks anymore. We just want to love this guy. It's the guy that we grew up with. And it still makes me feel exactly the same now as it did 4 or 5 years ago. And I think we could have achieved the same thing with this. Every now and then you go, you know what I want to watch? I want to watch that one last wonderful moment with John Cena. But as soon as I've said that, you're going to have a bunch of people going, no, that's not what I want from wrestling. I want something that's far more interesting, far more edgy. Not Adam Copeland, he went to AEW and didn't turn up for the John Cena tour. Shock horror. Like, I want something that kind of does get under my skin. And the evidence is out there. Gunther had to have extra security walking to his bus after Saturday Night's Main Event because people were so mad. So it kind of sounds like I'm sitting on the fence here. So let me just double down on this. I would have had John Cena pass out, or I would have had John Cena win, but mostly because I'm a giant Care Bear and I'm looking at these things. But I still think WWE probably has gold on this. And if we go back to what John Cena said on the Ariel Helwani show, or no, it wasn't, it was the Joe Rogan show, he was like, by the time the Royal Rumble comes around, no one's going to be thinking about me. And he's right. I think he's probably a bit too harsh on himself. I think most wrestling fans will remember him forever. But there'll be something else happening on Raw, something else happening on SmackDown. We'll hear something about Chris Jericho coming back for that Rumble, and we will start talking about something else. If nothing else, outside of the wrestling bubble. So much news gets thrown at you constantly. You can't overthink these things. You can't over care about them because your brain is being assaulted from all these sorts of angles. So in that sense, yeah, trying to launch Gunther up into a new stratosphere is the right thing to do. But in those quieter moments, let's say it's 2028 and you just have that little thing in your brain when you go, man, I really want to see John Cena retire again. I just think it's nicer to have that memory of the dude that you have been watching for 20 years, standing tall as the awful, horrible heel lies on the floor, but it doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. But I also don't think WWE got it wrong. Now, if Gunther all of a sudden is an opening match dude and no one cares about him at the start of 2027, then we've made a complete faux pas here. But hindsight is a wonderful tool. I have just had a whale of a time, and I changed my mind so many times. Like, in the instant reaction moment, I was like, I can't believe we've done that, man. It's not the right thing to do. And then I kind of talked with the normal people over social media about it, and I changed my mind around 2 p.m. Then I went out for some personal lunch with some friends and family, and then I came back and said, oh no, I don't like it again. It was just everywhere. And even some of the people that I did see that day that don't watch wrestling, they were talking about it too. And that's when you know it's hit a very rare height that you don't really get from anywhere else. It was on the BBC website. On the BBC website, they have a top 10 trending stories. Cena was in that for like 24 hours. John Cena on the flipping BBC website. So let's not pretend that we didn't get the attention. And I'm sure that's what Triple H was going for. I'm sure he was like, how can WWE get the maximum worth out of this? And of course, it's losing on your way out. And I would imagine that John Cena brought that to the table to begin with. But here's the thing. We don't have to worry about that as fans. You certainly can. And of course, we're going to talk about it here on videos all the time because I think that there is a certain level of fandom where you just get drawn into it. But you don't have to worry about what WWE is going to do in a year's time. You don't have to worry about if Gunther is going to be main eventing WrestleMania or if Gunther is going to become the brand new Brock Lesnar. What do we do with Brock versus Gunther now? You can just sit there and enjoy it, and you can take every single WWE or AEW or New Japan show as it comes and enjoy it for what it is or enjoy it for what it isn't. So if you are sat there right now going, I just tuned into Saturday Night's Main Event to see John Cena win one last time, and that's why I didn't like it, it's perfectly viable. It still makes you a fan. You're not an investor of WWE. You're not a stockholder. Your life isn't going to be better if all of a sudden they make an extra $1 billion, which they probably will do for many, many reasons. That's why I think you can argue this all which ways. Like, you really, really can. And aside from the people that take it way too far, I've not received one comment where I don't get where people are coming from. The ones I don't get are, Gunther should have squashed him. That's just ridiculous. Nobody wanted that. We wanted a contest that was full of emotion and full of, well, I don't know what's going to happen here. And that is something that I do think you have to give WWE plaudits for. I honestly couldn't call it. I thought John Cena was going to win. On my predictions video, I said it would be John Cena. I think that's the right thing to do. But especially sort of towards the last 5-10 minutes, I didn't know which way it was going to go. And when you do that, I think it allows you to, or just buy into the madness of what wrestling is. It allows you to suspend your disbelief, which also is why I think Gunther was the right opponent. I think if it was a Carmelo Hayes on LA Knight, I don't think I would have been drawn in as much. And here you just had a guy that everyone was going to hate in Gunther. And you had a guy that everyone was going to love in John Cena. And let's not forget all the things around it as well. The entrance, the post, go home, show, goodbye angle, all of that, I thought that was tremendous. So when Cena did turn around and utter his last words before walking to the back, I was like, damn, that actually got me a lot. Because it is the end of a generational thing. John Cena has always been there, especially since I started making content about wrestling. Of course, he came and go, and even when he had the Roman Reigns feud, I remember he called himself a part-timer. So even around about 2017, I think that was, he was saying those words. But I don't think he's ever going to come back. I'm not even entirely sure you'll ever see an AA again. Obviously, sometimes people retire, but they'll do run-ins. I think All of that's done. I think anything physical he may never do again. Of course, that one I think is up for grabs. But a proper one-on-one ding-ding, ring-the-bell matchup, I think John Cena has been too adamant that he's not going to do it. And as we've seen, he does certainly live his life by a certain set of values. And he certainly feels like he owes something to the fans. He's talked about that a lot as well. And I don't think he's going to come back for anything, especially because, I don't try to be horrible here, a lot of wrestlers that have come out of retirement before, it's usually because they're not doing much else. They don't have a lot of money and they need to do it. John Cena now is probably going to go on to become an even bigger Hollywood star than he was. But it's absolutely one of the best things that WWE has done all year. And not necessarily from the execution or John Cena tapping out or what we visually saw, just from the fact that we've got to talk about it and it's still interesting and people are clicking things and people just want to have their say. And I've seen so many people go, actually, no, I think this now, and now I think that. But you are allowed to be a fan, and you are allowed to be sad about this. Not all movies end in a happy way. I think some movies should. And I think the John Cena story should have ended on a high note, just because that's how I certainly feel about it. But some of my favorite films end by going, oh my God, it's the worst thing I've ever seen. I mean, the best Star Wars movie is Emperor Strikes Back. And that essentially is Darth Vader going, I got this, guys, I'm going to whip everybody's ass. The only difference here is we're not going to get a last act. Where, of course, in Star Wars Return of the Jedis and the good guys do stand tall. But maybe that's why wrestling is more unique, for lack of a better term. I don't know. Now, I really would like you to get in the comments below and let me know what you think about all this. But just bravo to WWE for creating a scene like this. I mean, it's kind of difficult because I love the fact people were so mad. Like, it was a real guttural, real reaction, especially when WWE was doing the post-show. But also, I'd rather people were booing Gunther than Triple H, even though it was Triple H's decision, but I still think John Cena would have totally been on board. So to answer the question of this video, I do think it was wrong. For my personal tastes, for John Cena to lose that way, there's also a massive side of me that is having the best time. And you can't wait for Raw to see what Gunther does. So it's a win-win or it's a lose-lose situation, depending on how you do want to see it. But once again, we'll get to 2026. It's only a few weeks away. And John Cena will just be a memory in our minds, because very sadly, life is a bit scary like that. So once again, comment down below. Answer the simple question, was this right or wrong? There is no right or wrong answer, ironically, but I'm happy for you to give me your two takes. Like the video, share the video, subscribe. Please hit the notification bell. Otherwise, you can go to grillermind.com/Simon. You can Simon get 10% off ships worldwide. Mine just came. Bunch of energy drinks. I took one before this video because I've got 9 videos to do today. It's made me quite pumped up, so I like it. Watch alongs at patreon.com/Simon316. We did Roman versus Cody yesterday for WrestleMania 40. We did a bunch last week, and we'll do a bunch more this week too. Thank you for the support. Makes this YouTube game way easier because, of course, well, we don't talk about YouTube, you know the deal. Simon316 to come call me an asshole. Lots of people have done that in the last 24 hours. You can go to my TikTok right now for a bunch of wrestling content and my stupid, funny backstage promoting videos. Would appreciate that. Cameo for a holiday or a New Year video. Doing loads of those at the moment, which is super cool. And ProWrestlingTees.com/Simon Miller to buy yourself a stupid Simon Miller shirt. I appreciate you, my friends. Let's say goodbye to John Cena. And remember, he is one of the GOATs and that wrestling is going to be worse without him, right? When one of the best of all time does retire, that's always going to be the way. But also the best thing about sports entertainment is it never dies. And the show just keeps on rolling and rolling. And we'll probably have a really shit Raw soon. So we can get mad about that instead. Goodbye.